or so.
Yeah, I actually visited with Jeff over there last week. I was in the area, and they had hired somebody, but he didn't show up.
Wow.
And Jeff has to be out of there. He had planned to have overlap with his replacement. So I'm kind of wondering what we can do to support him.
Yeah. Wow.
And just in general, land records across the Northwest, I have met with so many assessors' offices since June, primarily Idaho and Washington, where they're coming to me and say, hey, my staff left. I don't have anybody. And so the one thing we've been trying to do is connect those situations up with Esri business partners that are familiar with land records. But it's kind of a mess right now. There seems to be a real shortage.
Wow. Well, I'm going to jump in, and unlike last time and previous times where we've went around and talked about everybody's status, what I thought I would jump in real quick is just show you what y'all said the status was. And I'm going to start off by sharing the screen. Can you guys see that okay? This comes from your ArcPro Fabric conversion status form, and I will reshare that with everyone, send it out. That's how I send out the emails for notification. You can update that status form, but basically there's 4 or 5 statistics that I've been capturing, and I'm pretty sure nobody's updated this for a bit, but it's still kind of interesting. 40% of the folks are going to go to services with branch versioning. 25% are going to just Pro and SDE and standard versioning. 10% are going to a Jito database. And I just grabbed a few of those statistics. At the time folks answered this, 40% were in Pro 2.9, 52% in 2.8, and then some in 2.6, and nobody in 2.7. So 2.7 must be just the unhappy version. If you've gone to 2.7, you must have just said, I'm going farther. As far as the current migration plans, 30% are working on it now, which is pretty cool. And Tabitha is going to join us in a little bit to talk about just training and how you can get reimbursed for training and how you should sign up so you don't have to get reimbursed for training. So moving right along, another 10%, or I'm sorry, another 15%. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Another 50% have started now, making we should have about 45% of the folks that are in process. 20% more are starting in 2023, and then another percentage are starting after the fiscal. So again, at the time this was done, 47% have reviewed the requirements. Another of those, 40% had staff, IT staff were starting. The next one is 29% ITs were setting things up. Cartographers and GIS staff were starting to get trained. And 3 counties felt their conversion is complete. I'm not sure if John is with us from Clackamas, but from what he said, they're in Pro and running with SDE at this particular time. So another county moving across. So what I'm hoping you'll all do is fill out the form or update the form over the next couple of weeks. And I talked to Phil before we got started, and I'll show that at the technical meeting next in late October. Is that right, Phil?
October 14th.
Thank you. So those that want to know stuff, please fill that out. That's how I make your invites. So those are just sort of the overview from where everybody's at. As far as the design goes, thank you, Brian.
Oh.
I sent my typical mess to Brian, and he has been going over the last couple of days, getting it all squared away. So go to the ORMAP Tools GitHub, and you can get the current design. The current design is a 301. It's now running in 294 and is using Parcel Fabric 5. If you're not in Parcel Fabric 5, you should, and you're in 4, you should get a note that says you could upgrade, and you can follow that process. As we discussed in our last meeting, we talked about changing the created by record field in the non-fabric feature classes from a text field to a GUID. Not sure what the proper way to say GUID is, but that's what I'm going to go with. That's been done. And it's now decision time. And 2 additional fields were discussed when we did the training, and we'll talk more on training with Frank's class. One of those was backed up by a presentation. And so I'm going to jump to the second one, which is record name. And this was a request by my cartographers, but it also has been a request by a lot of folks that if you are using the fabric and you just want to point at a tax lot or a tax lot line and know what record it's associated with, right now, all you see is this long piece of text, the GUID, that you don't know what it is and you have to join in everything else. So Amir had done a presentation a while back about having a field called record name in the tax lot and the tax lot lines feature class, and had created an attribute rule called calc record name. Basically what that does is that updates the record name from the relationship class. And so the concept is that we would have an attribute change to the database, and that we would have a new tool, which again would be stored as an attribute rule. And I'm going to stop sharing, hopefully, and then I'm going to share my screen again. And what that is if I bring up attribute rules, or bring up an attribute table for a particular feature, now I have a field way out here called record name. I click on attributes and I create parcel lines. And what you can see up here is my Parcel Fabric. Record is not a very good name, but it's Anders D with the date. And if I add a feature, the attribute rule brings up the record name and is stored. So that's how that piece works. And so are there questions on that? So I'm back to voting. And the question I have for everybody, first off, are there any questions, discussions about adding that particular attribute and attribute rule to the base environment? Any discussions? As usual, this is a, lots of responses to these things. So I'm just going to keep rolling.
Do it.
Being that there's no discussion or questions, does anybody not want this, have concerns? Or those of you that have your screen so I can see you, which is like 3 people, hold your thumb up if it's a go.
Do it.
Thank you. Anybody else? Oh, good. Ivan, Adam, thanks. We all good then? All right.
Great.
Good. Thank you. So then the next change is this came out of our training. And that was that we do have a lot of annotation features that contain things like bearing and distance. And it came out of that class that wouldn't it be nice if when you pointed at a piece of annotation, you could know if it was actually generated from the geometry or if somebody key punched it in. And that if this was an attribute, we would use the existing domain, which is the parcel fabric Kogo type. So we wouldn't have to create a new domain. And in that domain, it's entered from geometry or computed. I don't know how you would compute annotation, but in this particular case, it would come from the geometry or entered. And that was a request that the folks in the class thought was a good idea. Before jumping in, are there any discussions on that particular attribute and domain? Hearing no discussion, Adam's way ahead of me. Thumbs up for a yes. Thumbs down for a no. Seeing lots of thumbs up and no thumbs down, we're going to add that in. So that will become in the next round of the system. And for those of you that are looking at that, right now there's a ORMAP tools github.io. You can get the standard design, which is a 301, and the next one will be a 302, and it will have these attributes in them and the attribute rules. So in the tools update, the only tool that got added is a new tool, and I sent you a little text file on that and what that looks like. And the only tool we've really added is a tool that lets you, it calculates the ORMAP area, tax lot acre and tax lot feet from the actual Kogo calculated field. I think it's that comes inside. And that now is added into the system. There's a Python script. For those of you that are into Python scripts and care, what you can see here is that it's just setting the project. It's running from a tool that you select the number of polygons you want to have. It then checks and makes sure, then tells you the count you have. If you have none selected, or in this particular case, if your layer count is over 200. Sometimes when I ran this tool just as a test, if you have nothing selected, it would select the entire database. Not something you probably want to do to calculate your ORMAP acreages. And so I just did a layer count. If your layer count's over 200, it says you probably messed up and it stops. But really, it's just it's just calculating the fields, tax lot feet from the calculated area, tax lot acre from the calculated area divided by 43,560, and the map acre from the shape area divided by 43,560 again. So if you have, that's what that tool is. It's in the toolbox, fire away. And again, that is also in available on the GitHub release. And again, thanks, Brian from Clatsop County. I sent Brian a mess and he's been getting everything organized. So I think we've got a process. So the next 302 release should come out a little bit more smoothly. So apologize to Brian that I kind of changed some of the formats. Questions about the tools? So again, the tools is the attribute rules, which you can get from GitHub. You can import them. There is an attribute rule import. You can export them, and I'll make sure that that's in the next release if it's not there. And again, you've got a toolbox. You can do whatever you want with those. And they all work with the 2.47, the T74 township sample data set. Any questions, comments about tools?
I have a question about the calculate area. We disabled that rule because it was calculating, I think the extent affected the final value. You know, we tested a few different scale, and the calculate area actually varies with your scale to maybe like, you know, hundreds or thousands of an acre, but we got some rounding errors from that. attribute rule.
Yeah, I saw that, Ben, and that's why I made this not be an attribute rule and made it be a Python script directly from the database.
But it's working off of the calculate area. So how
Right.
we,
We've not noticed that, but that's good. I'll test that. Good to know.
but I like that tool. I think we'll use that. I just want to make sure that calculate areas. Because right now we're just using, instead of the attribute rule, which is calculate from geometry.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that's good to know. We'll do some testing on that. I'll turn that over to my cartographers. They can see how it goes. Good to know. Thank you. Other questions about existing tools or rules that may have issues? I say there hasn't been much change in a few months. All right. I've had a couple folks call over the last month or two and just said, how do we get support? We've heard about the support thing. What do we need to do? So I just thought I'd briefly go through the process of updating, give you all a chance, anybody who has questions, to ask how to get support. So right now we do have money in the bank to do small projects. My understanding from Phil is the idea of getting a budget adjustment for the tools committee is making its way through the rules process within Department of Revenue. But like I said, there's budget in there to do smaller projects. And if it looks like we're going to have issues, any project that is proposed has to go through the tools committee, and they can be looking at the budget and say, well, you got to wait 6 months or whatever. So I'm just going to go through that process. So this is the same process, whether you want to get a new tool developed or whether you want to just get some on-hand technical support. And this is not calling and saying, hi, can I just see how data gets converted? I've committed in the past and will continue to commit to helping folks just do a quick overview about how to do things or how does this tool work. If you've got questions about, for example, how the canceled number tool works, you've installed it, it doesn't work quite right, please give Shad a call. I'm sure he's going to be happy to know I said that. And it's the same with the attribute rules. Call the folks on the tools committee if you've got an issue. This is, you want more than an hour's worth of help. And so to do that, you do a project. I'm finishing up a project with Robin right now up in Columbia County, going through her conversion process with her, and also making sure all the standard tools work in her environment. And so to make all this go is that you need to find an active tools county person. And in my original thing I sent out, I forgot to include Multnomah County. It was late at night when I wrote it. Sorry, Nick. But you can contact Polk, Clackamas, Multnomah, Deschutes, Washington, or Clatsop. Their contacts will be on the notes. I added them in. Their emails are here, so you can email them. But I sent you a work plan. I know that the work plan I sent to one of the counties was not they couldn't select, their email was bouncing it if you had a Word document. So I sent it as a text. So they'll have to convert it. But basically, you develop a work plan. So in my case, Robin and I said, well, what do you want to do? What do I want to do? Or for example, if you want a tool, say, well, what is your existing problem? What doesn't work? And why do you want a tool? And who's going to do the work? Who's going to test it? Who's going to make sure everything works? You will take that work plan to the tools committee. That means you can email any one of these folks and say, I have my proposal. Obviously, the person you're working with from the tools committee should be able to take that. That gets sent to the committee, who then reviews it. They may ask for clarification, modifications, what have you. Based on that, part of that work plan will be a dollar amount of what the county that's providing you that service will want. That work plan, once it's approved, on its form, goes to Phil. That lets Phil know there's a job being done. I would have an IGA. You don't need to have an IGA, but for Polk County to do work for any other county where there's money involved, there's going to be an intergovernment agreement. That's an IGA. I sent you a sample that my county council, working with Columbia County's Robbins County Council, developed. It's just an example, but it would be a good idea to have an IGA with the work plan approved by both counties. That way, if somebody does bad, the two counties can address any issues prior to coming back to the committee. The committee is not going to referee any project work. They're basically going to say, are you done? And if you're not done, and the county, both counties agree that they're not done, the money won't get paid because they won't approve it. So at that point, you're going to get the job done. You're going to notify the committee that it's finished. The committee will approve it, or upon approval, that will then be sent. And in the past, I've been sending those to Phil that says, yes, Phil, the work's been done. And Phil gets a bill, and Phil pays the county. And that's the process. It's very simple. This does not require a grant to Department of Revenue. It's just this simple process. Again, it doesn't, I would recommend that you have an IGA between whichever county is going to help you out and your county. And some counties, an IGA needs an act of God, and in other counties, it is a less of an intense process, but that's entirely up to you. And again, the work plan, just make sure you have a work plan that's squared away, that has known deliverables, and that the county that's receiving the service understands what's being delivered and how much it's going to cost them, how many hours. Questions on that support?
Yes, I have a question, Dean. This is Ivan.
Yeah.
And this probably would be going also to Phil. So I was going to, in the next grant application, include an IGA with help on conversion of the database into Pro. From what I'm hearing though, would I not include that IGA in the grant, Phil?
So there's two ways that you can get help. So one is you're going for the fall grant, and I don't remember how much money is available for a default fall grant, but if you need a bunch of work and you want it tied to what your county is doing, then a grant works well for getting that support. The support that's in, and whether you include an IGA or not, that's up to Phil. But in order to get, this is for tool support that is independent of the grant process. So Ivan, I'm glad you brought that up. You can get tool support, whether it's getting a tool written or whether it's getting some offline support. Say you want 10 hours or 20 hours of another county's, a development county's time to help you out. You can get that support at any time. And that's the really cool part of having the tools committee, is that we get a chunk of money every round. So every 6 months, we get a chunk of money, and that can be applied to doing tools work. And what we've asked Phil is to increase that amount for the next round in the future. So again, what Ivan's bringing up is, let's say that you've got a process that you need a lot of support, whether it's from a tools committee or say that you're going to use an outside contractor. I know there's a number of contractors that provide services in the Northwest to counties that are doing, including ESRI, that are doing both conversion support as well as others. Is you can, my assumption is, and my recommendation is, you apply for a grant. And if the technical committee says no, or if there's something that's wrong with what Phil is doing, but initially, we applied for grants at Polk County and got support for doing that conversion. So Phil, any comments?
Yes. I guess. Yeah, I guess it just depends on how you want to go about it, Ivan. I guess if you have a county that you've been talking with and they've said that they will help you and you want to wrap it up into an ORMAP grant, that's fine and dandy as well. But like you said, if you come to a point where you need to like just kind of come to Dean's group for maybe a smaller amount of time or a smaller project, I don't know, whatever it might be, you can go that route as well. I guess the only thing that would be advantageous to getting an ORMAP grant through the grant cycle is it wouldn't ding Dean's group $75,000 that they have. It would be a completely separate allocation to that. I mean, so you know, there's, I guess, advantages and disadvantages maybe to that as well. But like Dean said, you know, you could, you know, contract with ESRI to get help. I don't know, yeah, and put it into an ORMAP grant. But if you were just looking for one of the tools committee members to help out, then Dean's group would probably be the quickest route to go through. And like Dean said, you could apply at any time. You wouldn't have to wait until the fall of the spring grant cycle. So I don't know, that's all I got, I guess. But
Awesome. No, thanks.
I
That
guess the big
answers my
thing is it
question.
depends on how you want to do it. But
Yeah, no, that's perfect. That's exactly what I was expecting. So thank you, guys.
Other questions about getting support through this tools committee? So again, that was a great summary, Phil, is that you tie it to a grant. That's not a problem. Then you're subject to all the things that are in a grant. If you're, and my recommendation, if you're doing something big, grant's probably a better way to go. If you just want support on conversion or the tools, the nice thing about the tools committee is that it is not tied to getting a grant. So it doesn't have to go through that process. Typically, IGAs are pretty easy to do between counties, and getting paid by Phil is a whole lot easier as well. The tools committee is not that scary a group to work with. So I would encourage you to contact one of those folks and see if they've got time and support. Any additional comments on tools? So I know Tabitha's here, so I'm gonna jump to that really quick, but I wanted to let everybody know, Lincoln County has asked for a conversion review with me, and I'll be converting their stuff sometime in the next couple weeks and setting up a Zoom meeting with Scott and company to just go over how their data went through the standard conversion process, how they would then, and give them recommendations about what to do. One that will give them an ARC Pro data set with Fabric they can be playing with, and give them some ideas on things they should consider with going forward. And like I have in the past, I'll send the Zoom invite out to everyone so that if anybody wants to observe that conversion process, you're more than welcome to join us. Sometimes with conversion stuff, and given how fast I talk when I'm doing some of this, it doesn't hurt to hear it a second time. So you're more than welcome to join that Zoom meeting. I haven't gotten that scheduled yet. I'm still working on the preliminaries of that with Scott. I do have his data though. And so he and I will be going through that. And if you want to do a small conversion demo at some point in the future, I'm open to doing that. So again, the idea of this is it's all part of an implementation process. We worked out a lot of that, and ESRI and Tabitha have a great process for you to get trained, and ORMAP is paying for that training. It's not paying for your time, but it's paying for the classes. So I would strongly encourage you to listen to what Tabitha has to say and get signed up through the training process, because not many people are taking advantage of it. And there's good stuff out there, and it's, other than your time, it's free to use. So with that, Tabitha, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me this morning. Good morning, everybody. Nice to see you ish. So as Dean was saying, yes, there is some training that's provided. I am going to do a little bit of sharing here. This was emailed out to you all, if I remember correctly. I know Phil has also emailed some communication around this as well. So hopefully this is just a refresher for some of you, but for some others, just to re-articulate, hey, what's available to you, how to sign up for the training, and of course, answer any questions you may have. So let's see here. I'm going to share a screen. It looks like this one. Share. hopefully this looks somewhat familiar to you. I know John Ruffing worked on this and shared this out, but as part of the overall ORMAP strategy in terms of land records modernization, one thing that we recognize is that we want to make sure these people are successful in that modernization. So what DOR has been so kind to do is help provide some funding. I'm actually going to blow this up a little bit so you can just see this even better, as long as I can move it. Helping provide some funding. So the funding is specifically for a couple of classes. This creating and editing with ArcGIS Pro class, working with parcel data, as well as configuring branch versioning. You'll take some notes that we've got a limitation, sorry, that might be the right word, but just only so many people can take these classes that are funded by DOR. So just take some note for that in terms of who you're signing up and who you might want to register out of your county for these classes. Take some note that in order to have successful experiences for these 3 classes, we do have a requirement and a prerequisite in the ArcGIS Pro Essentials workflows, or the migrating from ORMAP to ArcGIS Pro. It's going just to make that class experience just a bit better if you have some good, strong fundamentals of ArcGIS Pro prior to taking these 3 classes, especially the creating and editing, and of course the parcel data class very specifically. I know that Frank Conklin is also, I don't know if he's online or not, but I do know that he's got a class that he's going over in terms of the ORMAP tools themselves, and does have some expectation that folks are coming in with some experience and knowledge with ArcGIS Pro. If you've been working with it for several years, feel fairly confident you'll probably be fine for these classes. But if you do need some free content as well, there are some web courses available that I'm happy to make recommendations around. Just email me at tperalt@esri.com. To register, all I need is the name of the course, the name of the human, the email address of the human that will be taking the class, and of course that desired date as well. Our public schedule is listed that goes through Q1 of next year. So you'll find all the class dates here, including corresponding time zone. If I get some kind of enough, what's the word I'm looking for? Enough interest for a specific time period, I'd love to organize a class that is just specifically for the ORMAP tool, the committee here, and all the assessors and cartographers, if that makes sense. This creating and editing, I think, probably makes the most sense from getting a private class perspective, but that should give you hopefully the information that you're looking for in terms of what's available, time frames of the classes, who to email, i.e. me, and then of course the information I'm going to need from you in terms of who's going to be taking the class and then when. Pretty straightforward, hopefully. Other things I can think of, I think it will, feedback from the classes have always been extremely positive. I know there's a number of folks that have taken the classes from Jack Horton very specifically, and he does a phenomenal job in delivering the content and facilitating the class. People really walk away with understanding how to navigate through these tools and how to really be able to do your job a lot more efficiently. And I know that there are some real kind of tips and shortcuts that are shared along the way, especially out of these instructor-led classes. So as Dean indicated, once again, DOR has been so kind to fund these classes. Of course, you, the county, will have to pay for the employee's time, but these classes are delivered virtually too. So that is the nice thing about that. I spoke kind of quickly, but I will say if anybody has any questions, please let me know. I'm happy to answer them.
Tabitha, can you send me that strategy sheet again, just so I can send it out with the notes?
Happily.
Cool.
Yeah.
So how many people have signed up so far since we started this process?
Oh, you were of course going to ask me that question.
right.
And let's see here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 counties out of 22-ish that we thought were going to be taking courses over the next year and a half or so. So we've got another 16-ish or so that counties that are eligible, available to take those classes.
And hey, this is John Ruffing. Just to add on top of that, we're emailing the counties that we haven't seen class signups yet. So I'm sure some of you are seeing those come through. Just let us know if you have any questions. Tabitha is going to be your main contact for getting that signed up. But we'll try to communicate as much as we can to each one, myself and Heather Glock. So I'll stay on top of emailing those out, making sure your cartographic group, your assessment groups are aware of that, or some of the GIS folks are kind of spearheading that. So I send that directly to each of you. So it kind of depends on that outreach, but you will be seeing communication come through. And if you haven't, please do reach out and we'll make sure that we stay on top of who is signed up and who isn't for you guys. That's it.
Thanks, John. Dean, can I give a little plug?
Yes.
Thank you. So if some of you are considering having your people take the instructor-led course for either the ArcGIS Pro Essentials or the migrating from ORMAP to ArcGIS Pro, or frankly, any other instructor-led class that isn't on this particular list, I just wanted to give a little sharing of information. So Esri Training Services has this thing called the Esri Training Pass. An Esri Training Pass is good for 1 day of instructor-led training for one person. So one pass equals 1 day of it is good for a 1 day course, right? So our pricing is going to be going up in January 2023. So if you're thinking about, I'm not ready right now, but I know my people will be ready in June, you still have the opportunity to purchase Esri training passes today at 2022 prices versus 2023 pricing. So an Esri training pass is $820 for one pass. Versus next year, it's going to be closer to $900. I think it's $895 if I remember correctly off the top of my head. So it's an opportunity to save a little bit of money if you're looking if you're forecasting a little bit ahead. So I just wanted to share that information out. This is kind of an opportune time if you've got some budget available, or you can kind of scrape some dollars before December 31st. That might be a great way to help invest in your people and helping prepare either for this particular modernization effort, and or of course, if you're exploring other licensing and tools from Esri.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
So this is Bryce. So I have a
Hi,
question. So if we take the courses, obviously we'd want to jump into Arc Pro and Parcel Fabric, but are we there to fully jump in with the model and the design, the database, and being able to print maps? I mean, can we say we're able to jump in with today, or should we wait until all the bugs are worked out? Or
so what I can tell you is Frank did the class, and in that class he took the demo data and processed several different workflows of processing subdivisions, doing a seg, doing a merge or a join, and so forth. It's all there. All of the tools that existed before work. Is it there for you? Your data's got to be converted. The tools have to be set up for that. But yeah, Does it work? You know, you can decide to go to pro. John's in production up in Clackamas in pro. We've been testing things in branch versioning. All the basic tools work in branch versioning. We've since found out that we would like to do a workflow that meets our needs. And obviously, I'm working with Eric and our cartographers on making that happen, but it isn't like, it's more of getting things customized to work in that flow. But is the layout going to work with your data today? No, as we've discussed in the past. And there are videos on how to edit and work with the layout. And we can spend more time on that. And I'm really glad you brought that up, because that kind of gets us into the next piece of Frank's training and what do you guys want to do with future stuff like Osaka. So let's answer your question a little further, but I want to make sure that we use Tabitha's time. So are there any questions related to training and getting things scheduled? I am not hearing anything, Tabitha. It's okay to ask questions, guys.
So Dean, this is Adam and Marion. I'll jump in. This might be for you and Phil, but the ORMAP tools training, signing up for that second class, Q1 of 23. What's the best step there?
That's going to be the next topic. So good.
Okay, great.
Cool. Well, I know Dean's going to send out the this training. I'm sorry, the modernization and ORMAP training strategy. My contact information is on here, so in case you don't have it, you guys will be receiving it again shortly. If you do have any questions in the meantime, please let me know. If you need to, if you are signed up and need to reschedule, we kindly ask for 3 business days notice to be able to reschedule and get you, make sure that we're funded appropriately and are refunded back to DOR appropriately. So those are just some notes to be aware of, and I will share that information, of course, in my email exchanges with you too, just as a gentle reminder. Otherwise, Dean, you should see this in your inbox shortly to share this with others.
Fantastic. Thanks, Tabitha.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
thank you. Appreciate your time this morning, everybody. Thanks for letting me join.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So what's next? Before we jump to Frank's class, assumes that you've got a good working knowledge of ArcPro. And so as far as answering to Adam and Bryce's questions, which are kind of getting into the next, what's next is, if you don't have a working knowledge of ArcPro, please take the introductory stuff, get some of your data. I can help you convert it, start playing around. Frank's class assumes you've got that knowledge. Frank's class is also for 1.5 day classes spaced 2 days, and then the next week, 2 more days. It assumes that you are going to take time outside of the class and try stuff. So if you don't want to get prepared and you just want to sit in the class and not really try anything, that's up to you. Personally, that'd be kind of a waste of your time and certainly a waste of Frank's time. But I would strongly encourage you to take that class and engage with it. The way Frank does it is the classes after the first day start with anywhere up to an hour where you get to ask your questions. Frank is the guy. Frank has a surveying background. He has a land records background. He's a trainer. And he's been doing this a long time. He's been partnering with ESRI on how to make fabric better. This is your time to pick his brain. So as far as, are you ready? I'd recommend taking Frank's class before you jump in. Again, there's just a lot of things. Obviously, Polk County, Clackamas, others have jumped in and are moving in pretty strongly in a production environment prior to taking the class, but I learned a lot of good stuff from Frank's class, and I'd suggest you do that. As far as when the next class is going to be trained, I have not set that up. Really don't know how many people want to take the class. We've not set a date. As far as a process goes, what I'd like you to do, if you want to take the class in the next class that's going to be taught, please send me an email. We don't have a time. We were shooting for January. The difficulty with January at this particular time is, one, we've got Osaka, which is also on the list to discuss next. And we also, the last week of January, ESRI is doing a Parcel Fabric session down at Redlands, which I know I'm going to be at, and I'm pretty sure Frank's going to be at, and possibly others from the Tools Committee are going to be going to it. But that's looking at giving them some feedback and advice on what to do with Parcel Fabric 3.1. So January is pretty full, but it'd be nice to do it in January. It all depends on how many people are going to sign up for the class. So please send me that email. Basically, Frank goes through Parcel Fabric start to finish. We end the class, and probably based on comments from the last class, we'll be spending a little more time on how do you play with the actual ORMAP and play with the ORMAP tools. So Adam, does that answer your question? At this particular time, we're looking for January. Do you want it sooner?
Well, that's a good question. I'll talk to our cartographic staff. We just started this week actually with a sandbox working against our own converted data, or a sample of that data. So yeah, maybe by, let's say, December, we would be ready for that course. But yeah, I'll get in touch with you offline. We can talk more about that.
And again, we said it would be Q1. The class can handle 15 plus people, and we've only contracted with them to do 3 classes. So this is the middle class, and we want to get as many people in that class as many counties represented in that class as we can. So, and the other piece is that the class videos are available online on YouTube. So go take a look at Frank's as well as YouTube's on how to use the tools. Tom, you've got a question?
Yeah, so the staff at CISU, 5 of them would be targeting taking that class, that middle class you're talking about. I'm not sure that they can, because they're also taking preparatory ESRI courses, the standard ARC Pro, and then the Parcel Fabric course. So I'm not sure January is, I would encourage or lobby for maybe a February timeframe for that.
Okay.
For in terms of the staff at CISU, just because they're already having to take several courses, or at least 2 heading into it. So they're trying to carve out that time. And if it gets too compressed, they may have trouble getting that January course in. Because I told them, don't take that course, don't take the Frank course until you've done the other courses from ESRI.
And thank you, Tom. So what I'll do is I'll send out, I'll work with Phil, and we'll get a survey out to everyone sometime in the next couple of weeks. And Phil, I have no idea if it's a doodle or whatever. If you can help me get a contact list, I can send that out. And so we can better ascertain some timing on that and follow up with everyone on that. But again, Frank does a great job as far as just demonstrating all the pieces. It was really nice. He went through what is a Parcel Fabric? And I got to tell you, I've seen what is a Parcel Fabric videos and slides from Esri for too many times. But what Frank did is he went through the model and he showed the data that goes with the model. And I found that was really helpful and a nice way to look at it. And so I would encourage you, if you are in a rush to get that going, by all means, go check out the videos. And that may help you We also have the opportunity for doing something at Osaka. And potentially we could do something the day before. Frank has offered that he'd be interested in participating at Osaka. So we are pretty open on some of that. And John, you got your hand raised?
Well, a couple things. And Ruffing, you might have to jump in here, but we've had a couple conversations in the last week with regarding the whole training issue and trying to get people plan their schedule out such that they're taking the classes and then they're in a situation where they can be lined up to take Frank's class. And what John and I have been saying is we told them, and I think these are actually the assessors that we were talking to, that there was kind of a loose first quarter next year, probably late. That's what we told them, because they were trying to plan out how to do their scheduling for training for their staff. So I just throw that out as kind of what we've been telling folks that have been asking us about it. The other question is the that session in Redlands in late January, is that a holistic testing
Yes.
lab environment? Okay, so is it by invite only, or did they say if they're going to just open it up?
It's been by invite. I know Eric and I is going, and being that Frank's been at all the holistic testings that we've been at, I assume Frank is also going to be there.
Okay.
I know that John has participated in holistic testing in the past. I don't know as anybody else from the tools committee has gone to those, but yes, they've been by invite only.
Okay.
Oh,
So you're thinking, I'm sorry, John.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Just quick, I guess, add on to that. And I think, Dean, we had chatted on that, the conference for Osaka this year. I think the Klamath Falls folks were putting it on. They had reached out on some strategies and where we can help. So I think what you said too, maybe Frank goes there and does something or something along those lines. Whatever we do, I want to be aligned with the ORMAP group. So, from direction with you and the team here, how we want to and what we want to do maybe at the Osaka conference for cartographers. I'm all ears and want to be aligned with however you guys want to roll that out. So just know they reached out to us. As obviously I talked to the assessment group over there a bit, and how we might align whatever it is that we as an ORMAP group or the ORMAP group wants to align with us on that messaging. Just let us know and we can do that.
And I know Donna, my cartographer, has talked to cartographers off and on about maybe doing something at Osaka. So rather than getting into that, maybe what we could do between now and the technical committee is get a small group of folks. And I know Eric's been talking to Lake as well. Maybe John and John, myself, Eric, Donna, would anybody else like to participate on just getting some ideas put together to present some alternatives to Lake? Raise your hand, give me a thumbs up, and I'll add you to the list. And we can kind of craft what we want to do for Osaka, or at least have that as a proposal to Lake County. You're going to trust us. You silly people. Okay, no other volunteers.
Can you, this is Tom, can you distinguish between what's going, I must have missed the part about Lake.
Isn't
What's
Lake
the
County,
difference between Lake and Osaka? Like you said them both in the same sentence.
sorry, isn't Lake County hosting Osaka?
Oh, that's it. Okay. Is
Sorry.
that what's going on?
Klamath. I thought it might have been Klamath.
I'm sorry, I got the wrong county.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tom.
Oh, okay. Right. There we go.
Hopefully that'll change people's hands going up.
Yes, it's been raining. I got lakes on my mind. Cool. Okay, good. Thank you. So Klamath, any other folks want to participate? So I'm going to send out some sort of survey on who is interested, and that will go to, I'll work with Phil on making sure that we get a wide distribution of that, of who wants to, and a time frame for taking the custom fabric training. Again, we got 2 classes to go. We want to use Frank's time and get those scheduled so we get as most people done as possible. I have not spoken to Frank about doing a 4th class, but he's just been very, very flexible on working with us on getting something set up. Just going back over notes, I've asked everybody to fill out the form. Make sure you update the Google form. I'll send that link out. Please go to the ORMAP GitHub for the latest designs. They're there, thanks to Brian. And again, you voted on a couple minor changes to the actual design. Support, we went over what you can do either to get help from Tools Committee or others, Tools Committee, using the tool support process, which you've got sent as attachments, or you can go through the grant process. The advantage of the grant process is that potentially there's more money and more flexibility of making it work for someone who is like a contractor that is not with the tools. So in comparison, the Tools Committee is more for targeted conversion tool support, whereas a grant may be tied to a larger effort that you're doing that involves other funds you want from the Department of Revenue from the ORMAP grant process. Again, I'm going to be doing a conversion demo with Lincoln County, and we'll send that invite out to everyone. Tabitha's gone over the training materials. That will be sent out with the notes just in case you lost the contacts and what classes are free. And then talk about just some of those pieces. And we've got a small group of folks that are going to be working with Klamath County. Thanks, John and Tom, about what county I'm talking about to help get some support you want to see at Osaka. If you're we've got time at Osaka with cartographers, but we also potentially have time that we could do the day before. So please email either John or John, myself, Eric, Donna, the folks down on Klamath, about what you would like to see discussed at Osaka. And I think what we want to ensure as part of the Osaka is that we make sure that that's available on Zoom. I know not everybody can travel south. There are lots of descriptions or lots of constraints folks have. So we definitely want to make sure that we can see that in Zoom. And Phil has asked what the dates are for Osaka. And I got to tell you, I haven't got a clue. Other people know those things. Usually it's like the second week of January or so. John or John, anyone, does anybody know the date for this year's Osaka?
I don't. I just knew it was just sometime in January.
I'll get those dates out.
Yeah.
Thanks for asking, Phil.
Yeah, you would think that somebody with revenue would know, but I haven't seen anything. So I was like looking through my calendar, going, "When is this thing?" So
yeah. I never get an invite. I always get told by you guys when to show up. So yeah,
gotcha.
I'm not in I'm not in a assessor's office, so I typically don't get those. But again, I know Eric's working with Klamath on making something happen, and I don't think it's all the way down south. I think it's going to be. I don't think it's going to be all the way down in Klamath Falls. So we'll have to see. I'll get more information on that out to folks. It is about 12 o'clock. I appreciate all your time. Again, the idea with this was it's come up a couple times that people were not signing up for classes, and there's concerns that there are resources there. Wanted to just do the basic book update to everybody, just let you know the tools are still out there and available. And that you do have resources and ways to get help. Bryce, I hope that answered some of your questions. Are we ready? As far as my view, we're ready. I've been working with Robin. The biggest thing that we're running into right now that I'm working with on Robin as far as conversion is she has feature linked annotation for her tax lot numbers. And we haven't got a really clean process for that yet and don't have a lot of answers from others, but Robin and I are working through that, and I hope we'll have that done in the next week or so. And then once once we have how to convert feature length annotation, I'll be posting that out on the, I'm working with getting that posted as part of the conversion process. Other questions, things y'all want to go over?
Yeah, question actually for, I guess, Brian or you, Dean, is so this meeting, when I get the recording, do you guys have a place to park that in the website?
We have been parking our stuff on YouTube, and Brian is like he is with GitHub, the magic guy there. I'll have to defer to Brian. Is that something, putting that recording out there, Brian? Can that happen?
Sure.
Okay, how
Sure, that's
about,
fine.
so I'll do that for today's recording, and it'll probably show up in a couple of hours. What about
Okay.
all the earlier meetings that I still have a folder with a bunch of those in there? Do you want those too?
I don't know. I think keeping one out, that the latest one out there is probably good enough.
Okay.
I mean, there'll be notes. I know Frank wanted it to be able to access a copy. I don't want to make a meeting notes video management system.
Okay.
If anybody, if you have concerns, please email me about, well, you want to see all the videos, and then I'll work with John and Brian. But I don't want to add to. I've been driving Brian crazy the last few days with all the weird things about getting the latest update. So I don't want to overstay the welcome there, because he is the one that set up as well as the GitHub, set up a YouTube channel for us. So all of this stuff from the class and the demos, that's all due to Brian getting stuff out there. So yeah, I don't want to make that too big.
Okay, so Brian, I'll get, when the file's available, I'll send you an email with a file share for it.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, I personally, I think no one would watch the old ones. You know, it's like if I were doing this, I would watch the most recent one, and you know, old meetings are not interesting.
Okay.
So I think maybe just keeping one or two up there would be good.
And I do keep all the old meetings out there as far as notes. And I do put those in the latest release. So we do have some historical as far as written down on decisions. Also, I've got from Donna that Osaka is in Ashland. And once I find out the date, I'll let you know. So you don't have to go all the way down to Klamath Falls. So head to foggy Ashland in the winter. Other questions, comments? Again, I appreciate you staying a little bit afternoon.
Oh, they'll have the ice rink open in January.
Wow. I grew up skating. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
We
Yeah,
could
they
play hockey.
right near the city offices, or there's a rink they set up every year.
Cool. Any other things regarded to tools that anybody'd like to bring up before we end? I will send out notes. Really appreciate your time today. Please fill out the form on Google so that we can make sure that's up to date. That is also my contact list, and that's a great way for you to contact others. And I will send that information out after a couple of weeks to everyone as a spreadsheet. So you can find out who, and if you see that somebody's all done and they're on STE versioning, you can find out who that is and email them and ask them how they're doing. So again, that contact list is a pretty good thing to use. Thanks again, everybody. You guys have a good day.
Take
Yeah,
care.
thanks,
Oh, wait,
Dean.
Mike and Adam have questions. Oh, Adam's got a thumbs up. What's up, Mike? Maybe Mike was just waving goodbye.
I think he was just waving.
Actually,
All right.
Dean, I do have a question. The contact list, where do we find that?
I will email it to you. I sent it out a while back. It'll come to you as a spreadsheet with all the answers from the Google form.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.